Hey guys, we'll give us a few minutes for some other people to jump in here real quick, and then we can get into some quick design I want to make an easel. All right. So yeah, if you are new here, you're probably not because you jumped in here when we started. Let me know. Let me know who it is that's watching right now. And whether or not you can hear me. Okay, I adjusted the volume down a little bit. I think it might have been too loud last time. Even now, it looks kind of like it's spiking pretty high. But we'll give it a shot this time around. Oh, actually, there's one more here. All right. Oh, there we go. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, let's see if that works real quick. Oh, that does work. Awesome. All right. See, I'm going to jump over here to social media a little bit and share the fact that we're live right now. All right. Yeah, so today I'm going to go through a little bit of maintenance on what we're going to do over here on this machine and talk about other variety machines as well, and go through how to make a sign in Easel. And hopefully we'll just take some clips from this live and turn that sign making one into a little more of a tutorial, and then I'll actually cut that sign later on. This particular sign, I'm going to go through how I design it in Easel, but actually I think it's going to work better as a laser cut sign made with layers, unless you use a really small bit in order to carve this on a CNC, right? Ooh, and I'm over here hiding stuff that I don't need to hide. We'll copy that out real quick. Oh, there is a bug flying around. Anyway, yeah, hopefully you guys can hear me. Let me know. Let me know if you guys can in the chat hear me right now. Otherwise, I'm going to post this real quick in a couple Facebook groups and then go from there. Okay, thanks for confirming about the audio real quick. I appreciate it. All right. All right, so we'll jump into that real quick here in a minute. And yeah, let me know if you guys enjoy these live streams. Let me know. DA. It doesn't let me zoom in on your picture either to try and see what it is. Brock, yeah, I'm doing really good today. I've got a few kids kicking around. One of them's inside hanging out after a short day of school. Friday afternoons are fun because I worked throughout the week at night, and last night was my Friday, so that's why I'm able to schedule these today, you know, on Friday afternoons. Oh, we can go in here real quick. How about you, Brock? What do you guys, and DA, what are you guys doing this weekend? Here, we'll switch this one over too. John, I mean, I enjoy doing them because I despise editing, you know? Now I do have to figure out which camera I'm connected to sometimes, but um, yeah, the editing has just been killing me. Now this new computer, I haven't had a chance to even edit one video on it, but the way that it runs, it's gonna be great. Whiskey smokers, are those selling well? I see a lot of people doing those. There's a handful of people who've you know, posted projects that are having troubles with that ended up being whiskey smokers, you know, the little almost like a oblong shaped ones. I don't do a lot of drinking myself these days, you know, like I mentioned. 3 kids, adulting as it is fun, you know. I figured I should be present. Oops, I didn't mean to shrink that down. That's okay. All right, so I guess we'll jump into Easel here and just move forward with this project, okay? Hopefully we can keep the chat here. Ooh, how did I do this last week? I had like these windows kind of stacked, didn't I? There we go. I think that'll work. I think that'll work real good. Well, I'll tell you what, learning Easel and Fusion at the same time, you're going to learn Easel faster than you are Fusion, I'll tell you that. Unless you're designing super easy to make stuff. In which case, Easel might not be, you know, it really all depends on what you're making, right? So if you're making more mechanical stuff, Fusion 360 is definitely the way to go to be able to design to discrete sizes, right? But Easel, as far as artistic elements, stuff like that, doesn't get... There's some caveats to learn about it, but it doesn't get too much easier than Easel as far as use and designing and stuff like that, right? Oh, you're just making a small batch of the whiskey smokers. You're not doing who was it? I want to say it was oh, now I forget his name. There's a couple guys I know. Now I've lost both their names, train of thought here, but there's a couple guys who have done some ridiculous batching out on different YouTube videos, and they make 200 plus of the same thing on one carve, you know. And that's interesting. Unless they're wholesaling them, it's kind of hard to imagine how they're selling them all at once like that, right? Personally, I'd rather build larger items that net a like a bigger profit margin, right? So here I'm just going to jump into this real quick, share my screen with you, and that should work. Yeah, so over here, I was kind of looking up some different things to carve, and so I kind of Googled this mountain sign, and these ones here kind of popped up on the top from Etsy, as well as a few other ones, right? And I've been looking at stuff to incorporate my laser as well as possibly the CNC if I've got a small enough bit that doesn't look too bad. And I really kind of like these kind of layered ones here, right? And then you can see here that I've already clicked through to this one, and that's this sign right here. So we are kind of looking at somebody else's design to kind of take some ideas from, right, without really copying their exact same design. But here, looking at this, right, I like a lot of times, even if I don't actually make the project myself, it's about the concepts to either replicate or closely borrow somebody else's design just to show how that was done and kind of learn the steps along the way that you can apply to either this or designing other things yourself, right? So what I realized here looking at this when I zoom in on it, right, is that these mountaintops, so if I can do this, let's see. There we go. These mountaintops here, if you look closely, that is this flipped around. So this is the back side of this piece here. And then the same thing with this over here. And it looks like maybe this is the one from over here. So what they've done is they've used a laser to cut these out. And then they have reused the parts to kind of give it another additional effect to it, right? To give it a little bit more 3D approach. I think it looks kind of neat. And it's a good use of the material, right? Instead of throwing it away. If you are going to laser cut these. If you're going to CNC them, you'd probably have to cut these out, separately and not be able to reuse the centers. Also, cutting with a CNC, you're not going to have such sharp corners in here. But you could do this on a larger scale, maybe skip the background and just do the free floating mountains with like a beam across the bottom to hold them and kind of skip the background area, right? And just do the mountain ranges themselves. And that would look pretty neat too. And you probably wouldn't need all these other peaks over here in the background per se, right? And then I think these are all identical, just different photos of the same one, right? Pretty much looks that way. So if you look close, they've got a couple mountain ranges. Oops. Let's see if I can circle this again. They've got a couple mountain ranges like this one here that is a different design cut into the side to give it a little bit of variance. And if we look at this one and this one, see that curve there? And that curve right there, those are actually identical mountain ranges, just flipped around again. And then here we can see this one here is identical to this one, which is identical to this one, and they're all just kind of flipped around into different positions. It looks like these two here are just one of these mountain ranges without the cutouts. Same thing here for this one in the front. It's one of these mountain ranges without the cutouts being done to it, right? So it's just the perimeter part. So I think it's kind of neat on how they took really two designs and then through layering and flipping them around, they made this whole, like a 3D layered artistic design here, right? And you could use a local mountain range to kind of incorporate this and sell it locally and potentially get a lot more sales that way too, right? Because like where I'm at, there are some nearby mountain ranges that do have snowy peaks on top of them even right now. And so if I was to cut them in a fashion that I can assemble them and kind of replicate what that mountain sort of looks like and give it the snow-covered peaks on top, I'm sure I could sell it locally pretty well at local farmers markets, right? Without having to deal with shipping. Now this person here sells them at $265 for this one. I didn't see the size of it, but 9 by 25 here, right? So really this is about I'm gonna go through designing one of these mountain peaks, and then we'll show how you can flip it around to make kind of the different designs here, right? So over here in Easel, I'm just gonna kind of actually cheat. We could go and search for SVG of a mountain range that kind of looks like this, but as far as designing these, like the cutouts that are going to be up here, that's really not that tough to do. The most difficult part that I see to do is how these really do parallel that other surface. But do they really need to? I mean, if they're pretty close to parallel, you'd be okay and it would look pretty nice still. It looks like this mountain, instead of coming straight down, does this kind of crooked, has a little bit of an angle to it where it right there changes angle a little bit, right? So we could either replicate that, but it looks like they paralleled theirs on this bottom piece here, which does some weird stuff, I think, to, if I can get this to stop doing that, to make these pieces flare out away from the other mountain or top like there, which I don't really love. So personally, I'd probably do these straight instead of having them flare out like that. But that's really up to you guys, right? I'm just going to show you the concepts of designing it. And yeah, so I'm going to cheat here and go to the Pro Design library and just pull up a mountain. And there's a few in here. Let's see if I can find one that somewhat closely resembles those. You know, at least has a few different size, different height mountains, right? Maybe it's, do we want mountain like this? Mountain peak, mountain range. So we can type those different terms here on the top, and we might get different results from that, right? That one there doesn't look too bad. For a starting point. So I want probably at least maybe 3 or 4 peaks and maybe some existing snow caps that are in there. All right, we'll zoom back up to the top real quick and see what I just scrolled through. So like even this one here, we could start with that, maybe add some more peaks to it. Don't really love how those are rounded on top. All right, let's go back and do. So we could even take this one here and modify that one through. Some of these are a little bit more aggressive with the snow caps in there. Like quite a bit of them going on already. That one doesn't look bad. It even has like some, what looks like a good river coming through it if you want to do that river a different color. There's 3 here. I think that'll work really good. Four peaks? All right. We'll pick this one here and just go with it. I had picked a different one before when I did this the other day, but I forgot what I typed in the search, so we're never going to find it again. And that's kind of, well, I have it saved, but I don't want to really just cheat and go to that, right? So here I'm going to choose fill as my option, and we're just going to enlarge this a bit. That way it's easier to see what's going on. Oh, so here we can kind of see that even this one, that's interesting. Whatever's going on down there, we've got an extra little bit right here, right? So in order to get these separate, you can see this is all one selectable piece. It's not actually grouped, but it's got cut-ins into it. And this is kind of interesting what's going on here too. But what we can do is use the apps, right? And we've got 2 apps that are really going to help us here. The Shape Exploder or this Exploder one. One of these 2 is going to do the job I want. I believe it's Shape Exploder. I always forget which one does it a little bit differently than the other. But here I can see that the pieces just look funky, right? I'm just going to select import and see what it looks like. So that did some really weird stuff to it. For some reason it shrunk it way down. But it might have done what I wanted. So let me just double check. Oh yeah, there we go. I'm going to change the cut depth so we can kind of see what's going on here. Don't know why it shrunk it down like that. It doesn't always do that, but we'll keep rolling forward. So here we can see it kind of separated the items out, right? So we've got these different pieces that we're really going to use for the snow cap. We can actually delete them out if you want to and start with just straight mountains. Since I do want them attached anyway, I'm just going to kind of delete this one. And then it's just a matter of, playing with the nodes, either deleting them out or moving them around to get that sort of design that we had in the other photo. I'm not going to copy it exactly, but I am going to kind of give these somewhat of a similar appearance. We'll pull this up here real quick. Oh, there's an Amazon going on right there, huh? We'll pull these two up that we can kind of see that one in the background. Maybe. Oh, it keeps on wanting to jump over to my other screen. Here we go. All right. So here to edit this, we really just need to adjust some of these to kind of look like those peaks going up, right? So it's a bunch of jagged ups and downs going on here. And this really, in order to catch the detail that we've got into some of these crevices here, is why I said this might be better to laser cut than to CNC carve. But depending on how you open these up and do these differently, you can get some other good designs here, right? So you want to add a node. I press the E button to get in this node editing tool, or you can select this right here in case you guys have never edited the nodes before. That's how you do it. So sorry, I kind of jumped into that. You just need to select your design element, either press the E button on the keyboard or click on here to edit the nodes. And then as you click on the nodes, you have the ability to make them curved or straight. Since this is a simple mountain peak, I'm not going to use the curves for anything. I'm just kind of so we could do that and keep going down with that. We can select the nodes and just press the delete key to delete some away. And then we can make it more and more intricate, kind of like theirs are over here if you like. Let's go down this one a little bit more. Oops. All right, so then we kind of just design a couple little ones here. And if you need to add more, you can just add them from scratch. Let's just delete this one and I'll add a new one from scratch, right? I like to cheat and just, well, there's a few options here. You can select a shape, import a shape, and then just kind of modify it. Like this. And again, if we set it to 0 depth, then it kind of looks a little bit more like how that the mountain's going to look, right, when we carve it. Hey, I see there's a few more of you guys here. Where are you guys all checking this out from? And let me know if you're interested in doing this or if you got another project idea for next week, whether you want to see more easel. A few people answered that survey I did before about wanting to see Carveco instead. So we might throw some Carveco in there as well. All right, so we've got those ones there. So, I mentioned a third method, right? We can actually select the line tool here. And if you take a line all the way around to the original spot, it does form a solid shape. So that's pretty neat. But if you take the line tool and you don't bring it around to the beginning and you just have a line like this, I can only cut on shape. So you see here, it's telling me I got an SVG, but it's not an SVG, but the line tool only lets you to cut on shape. But you can always come back in here, select that line tool, edit points, and add more points to it. And now it can be a solid shape again, as long as you connect one of the dots back to the original one. So that's a pretty neat way to turn something that was a line and kind of closing it up, because I think I've mentioned this before that you can't combine a line with a solid. You can't close a line either, unless you do that, adding the nodes and putting a node to kind of connect the shape all the way around, you know? Yeah, I mean, John, Lightburn is fun, you know. I started out with a CNC for like 3 or 4 years before I got a laser, and Lightburn just doesn't operate the same way. The whole setting origin and homing um, just doesn't function the same way that CNCs do. So that one can be confusing in and of itself. So we were kind of mentioned getting an offset from the edge here. I'm just going to kind of eyeball it over, and I'm going to try and make this one here somewhat match. Although as you do position these, you'll want to think about how thin these edges are going to be if you do cut them out, because a laser is going to be a lot less aggressive in potentially ripping out this top area, right, as it cuts these thin pieces. Whereas in a CNC, the friction of the bit and everything could blow these out depending on what you're cutting this out of. And I would, of course, cut it out of some thin plywood in order to get the layers like another photo is over there. All right. So really, I think this is just about it for basically this sort of mountain range. And this other one over here, they just kind of simplified it and did a little bit something different, right? So, I mean, you can do that as well. So then with this here, the easy way to do it, I like to keep a master copy of the design. Oops. Before we go through and modify stuff, right? So we'll create a duplicate here just to keep that original one as the separate pieces. So this one here, we can go ahead and just combine. And what that does is it takes the part that was the 0 depth white area that was on top and erases it basically from this area that was below this, the gray cut-in area from below. And then that allows us to change it to outside path, and that puts it outside of that solid shape. So the solid shape is basically what you see here as the pocket, and then outside the path does the perimeter of all that stuff. So we can jump back in here. I'm going to go ahead and slide this over, set that as a full depth cut through, and then run to the detailed view. And you can see how using an 1/8 inch bit, it doesn't really get into all that stuff. Now I haven't really set the size to anything special. It's 11 by 5. So if you are going to do this with an 1/8 inch bit, it kind of needs to be significantly larger. We can cut the bit down a bit, go with a smaller size here. We can just enter. We'll go. Is there a 16th inch? Oh, there's a 16th right there. I usually don't use anything below 2mm size in my shop because it tends to snap really easily, right? But you can see how it gets a little bit more detail in there. So in this part here, we talked about potentially cutting this other piece out and saving these pieces to use. You can just copy them over. Set these as the same thing, a full cut through on the outside the path. Ooh. That one is not letting me join it. That's interesting. So in order to close that up, let's see if all these are that way. It might have had an issue with, yeah, the way that I closed the lines together on that one. We'll fix that real quick. See how it gave me that error there of cannot, you've imported SVG, check for open paths, and join them before importing, right? But you can see we're already cutting a pocket, so it must not be open paths. It's just confused about like where the nodes are. It's letting me cut on shape. So see that? I just grabbed that one by kind of randomly because I think that was the one that I didn't add myself. I'm just going to put those to make sure they're one on top of the other. And that should close it up okay. Oh, it didn't. That's interesting. See how it's still open right there now? I'm going to try that one more time to close it up like that. And if it doesn't work, there's another trick for this. All right, so that didn't work to let me close it up. That's fine though. I'm going to cheat here and bring in another shape like this. I'm going to set this to 0 depth. Sorry about that. I keep on clicking there. Set this to 0 depth and then combine these two, and that'll force this one here to auto close those nodes I didn't want to close up there. Now it's going to let me do what I wanted to do a minute ago. So when you do this, you can move the tabs around wherever you like them at. This is tabs are another reason why cutting this with a laser is probably preferred for this particular design, right? So we can do it like this, right? We've got these additional peaks here to carve. We can move them in a position somewhere where we're going to get the best use of our material. And then again, if you want the grains to match, doing it like this is probably going to work out the best. But if you don't really care about grains, even doing it upside down, the grain lines will still line up. As long as we have this set to 180, the grain lines will still line up without, wasting much material, right? And then I didn't bother setting the workpiece size. We'll of course have to do that beforehand, before we go through cutting this out, right? So if you do a series of these and then do them all different sizes, because now these inserts are the same size to fit that mountain. So if you wanted to reuse them somewhere else, you could resize them. We could take this one here, copy and paste it over, increase the size of it. And if you are, if you have a plan for how you want to layer these, right? If I intend to layer this here, that tells me that this whole area down here is going to be hidden. So I could actually cheat and cut these using that stock, which is going to, one, make the sign lighter, but also not waste material. So if the plan is to kind of layer it like that, this piece is going to hide these holes cut out, right? So that's another just way to save your stock when you do stuff like that. I've got a 49ers sign that I made, and the San Francisco logo has a bunch of different ovals that are kind of stacked. And I did the same sort of thing there as I cut different logo pieces that go on the top layer out of the bottom layer that's going to be covered up anyway, right? The other thing I forgot to do here was change any of this thickness. Obviously, if we're going to go with the thinner plywood that I have from Home Depot is actually 3mm thick underlayment. So if we're going to be carving this out, we could go 3 or 3.2, 3.3 to make sure we get a full cut through into the wasteboard a little bit. And then we're ready to cut this out with a 16th, or I would probably actually use a 2mm size bit. Because again, that's the smallest bit size that I have kicking around the shop here. The 16ths just break way too easily. All right, and then that is how I would cut these and sort of layer them, right? And you could, again, I didn't show this, but if we want to mirror it to kind of flip it around, I'm going to delete these out for now. Because you would want to put those in there after you figure out how you want to mirror the different pieces, right? We come over here to flip horizontal, and that effectively mirrors it left to right. So then on that original one, if I pull it up again here, you can see it wasn't that obvious that these are the exact same mountain range, just flipped around, right? Because the way they're kind of mirrored and stacked. The one that's front and center, they kept that one that direction and then just mirrored the outer two, right? To give them a slightly different appearance. Real quick here, Brock asked, what laser would you use with the X-Carve? It depends. It depends. If you're going to mount it on the actual X-Carve itself, if you want ease of installation, JTech is the way to go. If you want the best bang for your buck, there are many other options out there that are more powerful for less money. But the thing that JTech gives you is a good wiring instructions, pre-made wire lengths, and a mount. Now the thing is, you can find 3D printable mounts on Thingiverse for different CNCs. You can find them for sale on Etsy, already 3D printed by somebody else. You can find some designs that you actually cut yourself out of either plywood, acrylic, or in which you can use the laser to cut those too by kind of clamping the laser in place and then using the laser to cut its own mount. It's more permanent mount, right? Or you can find some that you actually carve using the CNC, and then you mount that to your X-Carve or other, you can have it mount to the router itself, and then it would really fit any model CNC. And that's pretty much the way that I would go, because I'm kind of more conservative in wanting, what I spend on stuff, rather than getting the JTech, which has less power than these other options like the Atom Stack M50 or Two Trees sells a standalone laser that's pretty powerful. And X-Tool, as they've been selling their laser module, although they're reluctant to give out the wiring information, so that's a little bit tough to find for certain brands. But really, the laser module should include its own power supply, and then really just hooking up the PWM and ground from the laser module to the back of the X controller, and that's what allows you to hook up the laser to your X-Carve in that fashion. And then it's really just a matter of wiring those two wires to the back of the X controller in the same way that you might route to like a solid state relay for turning off and on a router. You can actually tie that into your laser as well, right? And because of that, there's actually, you mentioned X-Carve, but there's some people that have done it with the X-Carve Pro. That's a lot more involved and requires breaking your warranty, so I probably wouldn't do that on the X-Carve Pro if you guys have one of those instead. Because the only way to access those PWM wires is inside of the controller box on the X-Carve Pro. Fortunately, on the X-Carve, they have the terminal block on the back and the PWM and ground are right there. So it's pretty easy to wire a laser into that. And again, as far as the use of it and the wiring of it, you can really follow the JTech instructions for that. And because they did a good job of explaining that in both videos and in their written instructions, right? So as far as this goes, it's really just a matter of taking the design that we've got here and flipping it around, choosing the 3 or 4 different sizes. Again, the reason why I keep the original here, right, is so we can rip these pieces if we want to. And then if we want the other triangles that are cut without the mountain peaks cut out of them, we can take this one here and do that same thing. Full depth cut outside the path. Ooh. So it's not liking to cut outside the path on this one too, right? So it's probably an open a duplicate node, one on top of the other, somewhere in here again, right? That's probably it right there. Yeah, so we can maybe delete that one. Let's see if it works now. More here? No? Anyway, it's not really liking to do it. Yeah, because it did something weird across the bottom there, right? So if we take it like this again and use that trick of combining with the 0 depth shape, the 0 depth shape here just kind of disappears, right? So we need to select these two, edit and combine, or we can either right click and combine, edit and combine, or press Control J in order to combine them, and then it erases that 0 depth piece and it fixes our shape. So we set to cut outside the shape like that. And again, if we're not worried about the grain, you can rotate it to make it fit in. I don't know if you guys saw this. This is kind of a newer feature added like last October. There's a little arrow here. It kind of looks like it's going backwards, like you're undoing something. But what it really is it's snapping the rotation 90 degrees to that left turn direction. So instead of just grabbing here and turning it or typing in the number 90 or 180 or 270, you can just click that little arrow there and it just snaps it to that new location. So you can fit some of the stuff in here to kind of save material as you do it, and then obviously choose different sizes. And again, depending on which CNC you're using and you know, whatnot with that, you can get it to be different, fit different areas to make best use of your space. And there's we're over here looking at how kind of to basically nest this, right? Now I'm kind of going to go on a slight bit of a tangent here, but we're talking about nesting these parts. That's the term for fitting all these things in together to make the best use of your material, right? There's this app. Should be called Deep Nest, I think .io. There we go, deepnest.io right here. And it's a program you have to download and install on your computer, which I haven't done to this particular computer yet, but it allows you to do nesting of parts. So here you've got the original design, is all these individual pieces on a sheet, and then when you run it through the nesting process, it fits them as best as possible in the form factor that you tell it to, right? This particular one, it's using this square that we're cutting out, and we've got all these other little tiny letters and stuff that it nests into place to make best use of your material. It's a pretty neat little tool, but you have to bring in one of these file formats, right? A DXF, an SVG, or the Corel. What is CDR? I forget, but I think that's Corel Draw, their file type in there, right? So in order to get the SVG from Easel, if you guys don't know this, you could just go to Project and download Project Zip, and that we're just going to select Current Workpiece, which is this design here. Download zip, and we get this zip file that we can then uncompress. So it pops over here. I'll select Extract All. If using Windows 11, it'll look like that, and then this pops up asking where to extract it to. And it keeps on popping up my other screen. But then we get this other window here. You notice the Extract All is now missing, right? It's no longer a zip folder. This original one is the one I downloaded. It looks like a little zipper across it. The new one no longer looks like that. And we've got the unzipped project right here, right? So I open this. I didn't name it yet. I probably should have named this when we started today. And here we've got this one here called Design, right? We can open it with a series of things, or we can import it to that Deep Nest file once you get that going. And then here we've got the SVG of our design. And this you can import over into Lightburn. If you've designed something in Easel and then you want to cut it on your laser, I do this all the time with different things that I've already designed in Easel that I don't want to redesign in Lightburn. You can just import the SVG, right? Or you can import this SVG over in that Deep Nest software, and it's going to find the best angles to put these different mountains at to find the best use of my material space, which is great with lasering. You can also tell it how much of basically of an allowance you want in between the different parts. And for rigidity, as you carve with the CNC, they can't be butted up against each other, or else the parts are going to break free and go all over the place, right? But with a laser, you can get away with that. With a CNC, you might want 1/4 of an inch as your distance between these parts, and you can tell Deep Nest that, and it's going to make best use of it. You can also, when you import it, let's say I have a large name to import, and it's a bunch of different letters, and I'm going to cut it into plywood or real wood, and I want the grains to align the way they were, the way I had it designed, right? When you import in Deep Nest, you can tell it that, and then it's going to not rotate the parts. It'll keep them in their same orientation, but still try and fit them in the best that it can in all the different spaces, right? And then also how these parts are kind of like, these are cut into this mountain range. You wouldn't want these to then get pulled out, right? Through some settings, it'll respect the inner pieces that you've got in here as well. Anyway, it's a neat software in case you guys haven't heard about that one before, for maximizing use of your material. And again, it's free. It's an open source software that you can download off GitHub. Yeah, and then it's going to save it back as an SVG file, and then you just come over here in Easel and import your SVG file, and then you're ready to go. Or in Lightburn as well, right? So anyway, we'll jump over. I think that pretty much covers what I was going to talk about here. That goes over the design of that project. And then how much was this person selling it for, right? $265 for this, for the 25 by 9. So it's kind of a more, here's somebody holding it, right? So, I mean, you don't have to copy their exact sizes, their exact design, their framework, their background, their coloring. But this just kind of shows you how you can either take just the lines and kind of make that background. I've also seen other ones where it's kind of like a door hanger, or you use a couple layers of mountains like this and you throw, this one's not from that same shop, so it's not as egregiously borrowing their design, right? But you could take the different mountain ranges and cut them out separately, right? And then on this, whatever the back one is, we could copy these together and make multiple ranges. We can make the back range extra long and then throw in some text, right, that we attach to the mountain range. I'm going to go something kind of thick just for the purpose of this. We could do a last name that goes up there. We could do the name of the town that you live in, or the mountain range that's nearby. You can do the word welcome. Those are slightly smaller if you don't hold caps down for this one. They're still capitalized, but they're not that much larger, right? We can do the word welcome here and kind of do around it and kind of cut out this area and attach it to it. Here, I'll kind of show how to do that real quick, even though this wasn't kind of part of the plan. But yeah, there's 25 of you here, so it must be somewhat interesting. So, so we'll go ahead and take this one here and use the Offsetter app. Now you got two Offsetter apps in here to choose from, the first one or this V2. The first one, if you use it, it actually moves your design down here to the bottom left, and then you've got to bring it all back up into position, right? So that can get kind of annoying. The other thing that Offsetter, the original one, doesn't do is it doesn't honor this toggle switch. It is imperial only. So if you're a metric user and you're used to the measurements in metric, the original Offsetter just isn't the right one for you. It's probably not going to be anyway, right? Whereas Offsetter V2 honors the positioning and allows you to, if you've got a toggle here to metric, it's going to operate in metric, right? So we can set an offset here. We can keep our original, or we can not. A thing I like to do actually is I'm going to lock this one in place. I'm going to select lock object, and then when I do make my offset, it's going to leave this one behind it, and I can do some kind of tweaking to the offset parts and select the word welcome that's in the back, and it just kind of ignores it because it's locked in place in its current position and its current design. All right. So we'll choose Offsetter V2, and we'll choose a distance here. I'm kind of just going to go with, well, let's go with 8 millimeters, something that kind of does a good job at filling this gap really well. 10, there we go. And it doesn't matter if I choose keep original or not. The original is locked in place, so it automatically keeps it there. So now I've got this weird looking offset thing, right? I'm going to cheat here and use the combine function, and then we'll set this to outside the path. And this kind of duplicates what I did a few weeks ago with that other design for the text, right? For cutting out a text. So we've got this kind of weird cut in here, which you might, it doesn't look too bad when carved with a bit because it can't go down that far into this slotted hole here. But we could take that and kind of delete some of these out to make it so it doesn't go in there as much, right? And then I kind of like the way that looks. So then we want to kind of attach this down to the mountain peaks or to the corners here, and then leave this whole thing here as a void, right? So there are some ways to do that. Let's think about this real fast. We can do some node editing here and bring it down. We can bring in some shapes like a rectangle. And then kind of attach it like this. There's quite a few different ways to kind of attach this word down to the mountain range below, so it kind of floats up there in the air, right? So, I mean, that's kind of up to you if you want to do that. You can also just simply, oops, since I locked that one, it's not going to drag. So you have to make sure to unlock it after you do that little combine step to get this little bubble effect, right? You can kind of bring it down here, and then it's kind of just floating behind that peak maybe, and that might work for you. And then if we, yeah, we can carve this out. We can cut it through. Yeah, I think that would work to carve this text in here, right? To give it kind of that 3D effect. So here, to carve through that, you see how this is kind of, oops, I didn't mean to select the text for that. Just the perimeter, and we'll cut through. You see how these kind of interact here? And we're going to cut through all this, right? Instead of doing that, we're going to use that combine function once again and combine these two together. This shape here of the mountain peak and this perimeter that we created of the text. And now we've got that combined there, right? It is going to be kind of weak in that point there. We could have arced the word welcome to kind of give it a little bit more area to touch multiple peaks. There's a few different things we could have done to make this stronger, right? Oh, that's cool. That you could do here if you wanted to. Would you say, DA? You're in Alaska with the snowy mountains working with a long mill. The long mills are nice. I like those. It's not, I mean, I've seen a much worse design. It is one of the little, I would say, lesser cost involved designs of a CNC, right? To get that footprint. So there are other options that are a little more rigid, but the long mill's not bad. It's a good machine if you operate within the right specs, right? Are you guys even still seeing my screen? Oh, you are. Okay. So yeah, you could carve the word in there, and that's how you kind of combine the different things to give it that sort of different effect. Again, I'm showing you how to kind of make this per other person's mountain peaks, but you can do whatever you want to sort of customize it and make it your own without really duplicating somebody else's design straight up like that, you know. Here, we'll jump in real quick to the other part of this video. So we kind of showed how to cut the different mountain peaks, and then it becomes a method of layering to get that sort of a look. And like I said, if you want to do it cheaper and sell it more locally, you probably don't need the whole frame around it. If you don't, it's going to present a different look. I think this person actually had multiple things. Oh yeah, there's a different sort of range here. Some other mountain ranges that are, I think, local to them, along with a lake. So it's not like their only project. Here they've used just the cutouts. So they probably had extra cutouts from some other projects, and they just threw those cutouts up there to make that its own sort of thing here, right? And obviously, this is pieces that were mostly scrap. They're not giving it that. I mean, they're giving it a decent price tag, but not 250, 260 bucks. Oh, here's a neat one too, where they took the same mountains from before and they kind of sliced them down the middle afterwards and made them into a 3-frame design. Now again, you don't, and they do some with trees too. Oh, here's that free-floating one I mentioned, right? So here you can see it's kind of like a shelf where they put the different mountains kind of onto slots in the shelf to give it that 3D effect. Now, anyway, if you are looking at other people on Etsy and want to know, you know, what sort of projects they're doing that are selling good for them, right? You can select. This works on a computer. It doesn't work on a phone unless you're using a browser that you can use in desktop mode. They don't work on a phone, but it doesn't work on their app, right? You have to use a browser like this on a PC or in desktop mode. And then you can click on their store name. And once you go to the store name, you can click on the quantity of sales. Now this is optional for the store to turn this function off. So if you go to my store, you're not going to see this because I don't want you guys, or I'm not going to invite people to compete with me by knowing what sells well. So, I mean, if you have your own store and you've got 37 different items and one thing sells a ton, do you really want your competition knowing what sells the best from you? Your customers aren't going to look here to figure out what sells best, to know what to buy. You're really just inviting competition like me to come in here and look at which of your items are selling the best. So then this listing here is a list from today, right now, on the top left, going back in time on what all they've sold. You don't get dates on when stuff's sold, but you can tell this one here with the trees sold okay. They've been selling some of these other Aztec blankets, housewarming gifts. This other mountain art sold okay. And then we can kind of go through the history. There's the mountain range there, one that they sold. So you can kind of see before you bother going to not so much duplicate, but if you're looking at the idea of, oh, they made that and it looks great, but it's not selling. Maybe their price is way too high. Maybe their quality is just really bad too. You never really know what's causing it to not sell as well as other items. Now the other thing too is it doesn't tell you when it sold. You can kind of guesstimate that based on how old the shop is. And another live stream I went into using this website called eRank, and using that eRank, you can also see how old the listing itself is. So if you kind of scroll through this and say, oh, they've sold a total of 40 of these, but the listing is only 6 months old, that's like 8 a month, right? 8, 9 a month. That's could be decent profit when you're selling it for $250 a piece, right? So just keep an eye out for your competition and what they're doing. Again, like I mentioned, you don't want to rip off an exact replica of what somebody else is doing. That's just not cool. But to kind of take some design elements and how do I do that? A lot of times I just like to design stuff to design it. I don't even end up carving or cutting things, or I make one or two for myself and a friend. And then it's not too egregious to knock off somebody else's design, right? Especially when they're not selling the design themselves. And again, where did I go here? So there's that. They're no longer selling this wooden wave art 70s retro thing. So you don't get to see the price point they had because the listing is no longer up. But yeah, you can see here this one they kind of did some, looks like they carved some waves and then stained them different colors. Anyway, we'll go back into what I plan on talking about for the second half of this video, which was maintenance of the CNC. We don't have a ton of time left, so I'm just going to kind of touch on a few things real quick using this one that's behind me, which is a lead screw driven machine. And what I do for maintenance on this one, I haven't really run this one a ton, maybe about 20 carves on it since I've had it. So we'll do a video on how I like this machine versus some of the other ones as well. But get in this real quick. Hopefully you can see that. Oh, we need to change camera views. There we go. Hey, Mikey, B2D. Oh, all the rest of you guys too. You could drop like your social medias in the chat too if you want people to check you out. Instagram, stuff like that. There's a lot of people there that I end up chatting with through Instagram or Facebook. Mikey, a video is about Carveco. So a buddy of mine, let's see, is he here? Is he here? It's not John Woodworker, but over at Timber Falls, his YouTube channel is called Timber Falls. He's been doing a whole bunch of series on Carveco and how to use that. I've done a couple. Really, I started with a 3D one myself, how I kind of simplified the original Carveco tutorial on how to do 3D. Leighton likes to talk a lot in those videos, and some people from the US don't really love his accent either. So I kind of ripped his video from that and stuck to some key points about how I use the 3D element, the 3D carving in Carveco, and try to keep it short and simple, right, for cutting pieces out that are 3D. Where he does a lot more of the 3D design as well as you can using Carveco Maker and some of the other aspects there, getting into a little more of the weeds of intricacies of it, whereas I covered importing an STL and carving just that STL. So if you're interested in that, how to carve just a plain STL, my video covers that. If you want to see some more details about it, check out Leighton's, check out we'll link him real quick in the video here, right, in the comments. I think it's that one. Let's see if it finds it real fast. Yeah, it's not gonna. We can go with Timber Falls, and I think there's a couple from James Dean Designs as well. Let's see if they can do it without managing to cancel the live stream here. Oh, there we go. So we can have. So Timber Falls here, you can see he's been doing some of these. He's just started out a little while ago with his YouTube channel, right? But he's got quite a few different Carveco ones he's been going into, showing about how he does. Where is it at? These four-sided carves to get this 3D effect with the chess pieces. He's done like a few different like chess sets, I want to say, using this four-sided carve function. So we'll drop that in here real quick. And then who else? Roger Webb. He does some in Aspire and Carveco Maker Plus a lot. So if you're using Carveco Maker, he might get into some functionality that you don't have over there. And then let's see if the official Carveco one comes up. So the official Carveco one is here as well, and they do have a whole learning side of their website too, where they've kind of simplified these videos and put them into a way that they can better structure them by organizing them by the software type, by organizing them by the different sort of design stuff, right? Like here we've got Carveco Maker Plus right next to a Carveco Maker video, and then if you have full Carveco, that gets even more settings that you might not have access to with just straight Carveco Maker. So here they've kind of categorized them as well. So if you do go to their official one, make sure to check that out. Oh, here's a Roger Webb that I mentioned. Oh, Chris Powell's got a few. Sam Craft. They've got Timber Falls. Vernon Hinkle. He does them as well. I kind of forgot about Vernon. Oh, well. Oops. Sorry, Vernon. And then I don't think Geeksmithing's in there. Oh, who else? There's one more too. Let me check real quick. Make sure I get his name right. It's gonna take me a second to find it too. Oh no. Let's see if I can find it real fast. Anyway, if you go and check out the Carveco group on Facebook, there's a few other admins in there that have channels as well. I just kind of forgot the name of them right now. Let's see if I can find it in just a second here. Oh, it looks like I'm not going to. Oh, you know what? It's probably on my channel under the other recommended channels, right? Oh, it's not there. The other guy I was looking for. Anyway, I'll get back to what I was talking about. Yeah, so Timber Falls is on there as well, right? So I linked to that one just now. So you can check out his channel where he's been going through those tutorials, and then James Dean Designs as well. Anyway, over to kind of the maintenance of this machine of this particular model, there are some aspects of that I don't love, but I'm going to hit on those anyway to discuss the maintenance of other machines, right? So this one here uses lead screws in order to, and as does, this one is kind of almost like a clone of the Workbeat machine with some modifications to it. And then the Prover XL from SainSmart is very similar to that as well. And these two have one key thing that I dislike about the design. But just because I like it so much on other machines that don't have this flaw. And that is, they use these singular solid V wheels over here. I'm not sure how well you can see that. Is that this camera? It is. Hopefully I don't unplug it or give you vertigo moving this. But there's a singular solid V wheel back here. And it uses two wheels, but they're connected in the middle by, it's like one solid piece of plastic that spans across. And I believe their thought process there is it reduces wear, but they're not adjustable. Since they're not individual wheels and they don't have eccentric nuts on the top or the bottom, they're not at all adjustable. So once they wear, you've got to replace them. And those two brands are the only one using them, so they're the only place to get replacements from, which is kind of annoying if you don't have them on hand and they get damaged and it starts being loose and moving around, right? So that's just something to be aware of on this particular model. Now, as far as the lead screws, I do like the design of the lead screws. A little bit more rigid than my other CNCs that use belts. And it allows you to kind of press through the material, cutting aluminum and acrylic a lot easier, you know? But, so for this, I recommend, cleaning the lead screws. And what I do is I take a cloth and run it with this as this feeds down to clean it. And then again, do the backside to get that little bit that's back there that we missed, right? While jogging the CNC back and forth to clean in the groove of that lead screw. And then you want to apply some silicone-based lubricant. You can check on Amazon for a brand called Super Lube, and it's inexpensive and it's food grade or food safe silicone-based lubricant to go in there, right? So if you get some on your fingers, it's not really going to harm your skin or anything like that. So that's as far as maintenance to the lead screws, cleaning them off, and then relubricating them. And then, of course, the Z-axis, the same thing. And that Z-axis one applies to a lot of different models. Even my ones that use belts also have a lead screw driven Z-axis. So you'd want to clean that off by jogging it while kind of holding a rag into the grooves to get all of the debris and wood chips out of those grooves, right? Now, a key to this as well is to have good dust collection, right? So for this particular model, because I was recording videos with it, I designed a 3D printed dust collection that actually comes out the back and has a big old port that comes out the front. And I don't know if you guys can see back there, but I use a 4-inch dust collection hose, so it's got a lot of volume, right? So I can cheat by not even having a front in there. So having a large volume dust collector that is going to suck up 90+% of the chips is going to make a big difference on how often you've got to do the maintenance here. Now, over on my other machines, like the one behind me back there, that's a work bee, so it has more V wheels in this one, and the bottom V wheels on the different axes and the side V wheels on the Z axis over there are adjustable and use those eccentric nuts, right? And ooh, I saved that somewhere. Let's see if I can find that real quick. But oh yeah, so the eccentric nuts basically work by having a hole that's one size and basically the shaft that's offset from the center. So as you rotate the nut, it's actually either lifting the wheel up or bringing the wheel slightly down because it's offset like that. And that's how the eccentric nut works. They're on all my 3D printers that are over there in the corner. They're on 2 other machines that I've got in here. And they just work really well, especially if you're not going to have linear rails, right? Obviously, linear rails are going to be optimal versus these V wheels, but having that adjustability in the V wheel is a key factor. So in addition to that, we've got belts on the other machines. So for the belts, you want to set their tension. There's a great, again, James Dean went over a video on this, or that's not really his name, but James went over a video on this about how to tension the belts properly using a luggage scale or a fish scale, and that works really well for tensioning your belts, especially on, I think, who was it that mentioned X-Carve? When you mentioned X-Carve, so yeah, the X-Carve uses the belts as well, and getting the belt tension set properly is important there. If you're not going to use an actual scale to do it, I recommend kind of using the twang method of seeing how it sounds when you pluck it. And even then, I would make sure it makes a nice medium pitch to it versus a really low pitch when it's loose, and then tightening it a little bit extra and having an extra set of belts on hand. Luckily, on that big machine back there, it actually does use belts. It was the first version of the large scale work bee, and it has belts on it still. But I bought spare belts when I bought the machine 3 years ago, and I've yet to replace them. They've worked perfectly fine. I did follow the proper tensioning method using the scale, and they've worked out for a long time. Now that one over there uses 3mm pitch, 6mm wide belts. So if you've got the smaller belts that are only 2mm pitch, they're a lot thinner. So I could definitely see those ones being more prone to snapping. So just something to keep an eye out for. If you've got a belt-driven machine, get spare belts before they snap on you. It's better to have those and not need them than need them and not be able to get them for 2 or 3 weeks, like some people have seen issues with. All right. And the other thing here on this particular model, if you've got a spindle like this 400 watt one from Silverback, there's a 300 watt one from SethCNC and Fox Alien, and they have these little black kind of ears, I want to call them, protruding from the sides up here, right? And what that actually is where the brushes are, because this is a brushed motor. So you can use a flathead screwdriver to take off these set screws and access the brushes there to replace them. So if you ever feel like, oh, my spindle just died all of a sudden, that's why. And the same thing on routers. Where's one at? There's a router over there somewhere. Yeah, here's a router. All right. There's actually like 3 more on the shelves up there, but they're different routers. This is the Bauer, which is just a clone of the Makita, and then we've got the same sort of flathead set screw plugs that are in here, and you just take those out, and that's how you replace the brushes on these. Now, the brushes on the 400 and 300 watt spindle are a little bit tougher to find. I recommend contacting the brand you got it from to source replacements. I think that the 300 watt and the 400 watt from Your Home, from Fox Alien, and from SethCNC are all the same style brushes that go in there. But yeah, there's that. And then the Bauer one here, you can use the same brushes as the Makita because it's a clone, as well as the Carbide 3D router from the guys at Carbide 3D that make the Shapeoko and stuff. Their version is just another clone of the Makita as well. All 3 of those use the same style brushes. Yeah. What else? I think that covers, let me see. Yeah. Everything we're going to go over. Oh, and then of course, blowing out the, making sure to open up occasionally the control box, right? Over here, it's around the corner. There's usually a fan to blow air in, which also brings in microscopic, or small wood dust, right? So make sure to open that up and occasionally blow it out with lightly compressed air. Canned air is best, or if you've got a nice filter on your air compressor and you've got that turned down to a lower pressure, right? That's good as well to blow out some of that dust before it builds up enough to cause a short. Now, something else to keep in mind here, especially on belt-driven machines, it's a lot easier to do on belt-driven machines than on lead screw ones. But I always want to touch on this when we've got the CNC here in front of us, is not moving it around by hand, especially on a belt-driven machine. It's really impossible to do on a lead screw-driven machine because there's so much additional kind of like gear ratioing happening with the way that it's direct driven through to the stepper, right? So I can't even really pull this forward if I want to. Whereas on the belt-driven machines, it's just so easy to pull it forward. The problem with that is if you do that, it causes the steppers to generate voltage, which then gets backfed to that controller and will burn the drivers up. So if you ever have an issue where it seems like one axis is lagging, well, the axis is lagging is probably not working at all, and the other axis is bringing the CNC around by itself. And that's because the drivers got burned up. Usually it's a result of somebody pushing the CNC front to back, and that causes one of the two Y motors to generate enough power to burn up its driver. And then the other Y motor is working, and you've got one with a burnt up driver. That usually requires replacing the whole controller board on a lot of models. What else? I think that covers just about everything I want to go over. Oh, collets, right? So there's one more thing we talked about maintenance, right? So I suggest as often as possible to pop the collets out, hopefully every single carve, and remove the sawdust that builds up inside the collet itself. And that is because that can prevent it from closing down all the way. If you get enough sawdust built up in those grooves, it'll prevent it from closing down and clamping onto the bit, right? So that's just something to keep in mind as well, is to take that out after every carve and to clean out the slots. And again, the Bauer, the Makita, and the Carbide router all use the same collets. I'm not really a big fan of those adapter sleeves. I would just prefer to buy the right size collet for the bit that I'm using. Anyway, I think that covers, yeah, that's about it. If you guys have any other questions, you want to go over anything, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to get out of here really soon. Oh, there's 37 of you here. That's awesome, guys. I really appreciate it. If like half of you could hit the like button, that'd be awesome. But anyway, I hope you guys have a great weekend. And if you have topics for me to cover, leave them in the comments either now or afterwards, or send me a text message, a DM through Facebook or Instagram if you like. My Instagram is actually Seth_CNC, because there's some person who's got SethCNC who isn't actually active on their account. But yeah, if you want to hit me up over there on Instagram or Facebook to give me a topic idea, or email me at cncseth@gmail.com, any projects that you would like me to touch on for next week. All right, if they're not a priority thing that you need done right away, if you need it done quick, I'll try and help you guys sooner than later. Anyway, until next time, you guys, I hope you guys do join me next Friday at the same time, same place, and have a great weekend. Thanks for hanging out. Bye.